We're now ready to begin with the operations. Again, we need to refresh our communications with the opposite side, make sure that everybody's clear on their designations, as well as the color codes for their lines. You're going to need to dictate slack and tension commands for the belay line on the support side, as well as on the operational side. You're also going to have to dictate lower and haul operational commands for the operations side. This is a personnel intensive operation. You're going to need your lower haul team, your incident commanders, safeties on both sides, team leaders on both sides, as well as operators for your belay systems and extra individuals to support tending people when they get to the banks. If we're going to ferry the load from this bank to the opposite bank or traverse the load, then the command is going to be given to the support side to tension the belay or haul the belay, and the operational side is going to be given the command to slack the belay. Both sides have to work in unison, and it's imperative that you monitor your paired prusik to ensure that they don't get loaded, where you would have to engage your load release hitch or a reverse of operations to unload those systems. So we're ready to ferry, the commands are given, we've gone through our safety sequence, and the rescuer tells us ready. The load would be pulled back, you'd mind your prusiks, and then you would go right into your slack operations to allow the belay to play out while the opposite bank is taking up slack on the belay or tensioning the belay, thus transferring or traversing the load across the bank. In reverse, I'll demonstrate what the other bank is doing. The other side is doing nothing more than hauling on the belay, bringing the load across. Initially, that element of the operation is easy because the load is traversing at a downward angle from this side of the bank. Once it hits its medium point or its resting point, the travel or the traverse from then on is at an upward angle, thus assuming more load and more friction. That is the point when this operation may be required to become a hauling operation utilizing mechanical advantage. A quick Z-rig is usually enough to accommodate this. So make sure that you have your prusik for your progress capture device as well as your pulley in a handy and accessible place so that you can quickly rig in that Z-drag if that extra mechanical advantage is needed. So here's the hub of our system, or our English Reeves point, where we're traversing. We talked about the prusik management earlier in the operation. We're going to loosen these up just for demonstration purposes so that they won't set, and demonstrate the rope traveling through the system. When the rescuer has reached the objective point, or through visual evaluation sees that he's in line with his target, he's going to call a stop. Both belay systems are going to set themselves for safety purposes, and then the rescuer is going to dictate lower slow or lower fast. At that time, the lower haul operational team is going to go ahead and deploy the brake rack and start to allow the rope to descend, thus allowing the rescuer to deploy down but still maintaining his progress at point. Let's go ahead and go back over to the operational side and walk through that activity. On the operational side at the lower haul hub, your optimal tool choice would be an MPD because of how rapidly you can change over from lower to haul operations. If not using the MPD, then you would use the traditional brake bar rack with the load releasing hitch and the PMP and prusiks, also referred to as an RPH. This system should be locked off and tied off during traversing operations. Otherwise, an individual, you're going to lose a manpower or a component of your personnel to mind a soft lock the entire time we're traversing. Once the rescuer is given that stop command and we're ready to lower, then you can go ahead and take off the hard lock or the lock off tie off. And either utilizing visual and verbal communications with the rescuer or via an edge tender or safety officer between the operator and the rescuer, go ahead and go into descending operations. Once the rescuer has reached his target, whether it's mid-height or all the way at the ground, you need to have the ability to transfer operations or transition the load while maintaining it. If the rescuer's on the ground, then it's not a big deal. You can completely de-rig your brake rack and go into haul operations. If the rescuer is at mid-height on the cliff or is not able to rest his load or secure his load, then you're going to have to do a changeover. So we'd immediately put all our bars back in and then either work as a team working off of a soft lock or reintroduce a lock-off tie-off, bring up our load release hitch and our Prusik and go ahead and transition the load. Once the load is transitioned, we're then prepped to do hauling operations, and we would use the same system to haul the rescuer up to the desired height and then go back into our traversing operations. Keep in mind that if the rescuer is deploying down to the basin, he's deploying for the purpose of packaging or assessing a victim. If he's coming back up, the load has just changed from a one-person load to a two-person load. As soon as the victim's load and the rescuer are oriented or rigged to the system, safety checks need to be readdressed. You need to visually reevaluate your track lines, and if you're utilizing a dynamometer, check your loads and make sure that you don't need to slack your track lines. If your track lines are over-tensioned and you multiply the forces or the load applied to them, you can overload the system. So just do an additional redundant safety check to ensure that the system is operational the way you desire it to be and safely.